So Tom Phillips and his three kids, now aged, well, are they? They're 8, they're 9 and they're 10. They've been on the run since late 2021. 2.5 years he's evaded the authorities. Now it's mid-2024. It seems almost impossible what he's pulled off, doesn't it? It really does. There's a warrant for his arrest. He does not have legal custody of his children, and there's huge concern for their well-being and for their welfare, of course. Will the $80,000 police reward smoke them out, and will someone come forward with the crucial information? And how hard have the cops really searched for this man? Have they made it a priority? Former top cop Lance Burdett joins us now. Lance, g'day. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Duncan.
Thanks for coming in. The reward, that's rare to put up a reward, isn't it? But
it is very rare,
obvious sometimes.
Yeah, it is. So when to generate information, essentially, and you know, $80,000 is no small sum. So it'll probably enough for the tipping point on some people.
How do they come up with the $80,000?
How do they come up with anything these days? It's usually only done in homicide inquiries, murder inquiries, where they've come to probably murder inquiries. This is the first time I've heard it for missing people. Missing people for 2.5 years. It's a long time. 2.5. Missing.
Well, we know they're alive. You know, we assume they're alive. Yeah. 2.5 years in a place of this size. Come on.
Well, I mean, we've got sophisticated technology. I mean, there's satellites, there's drones, there's all sorts. I mean, why can't
technology?
But it's not that big an area where they believe he might be. So, I mean, we've got. You're talking about SAS. They've got the SDG, the New Zealand Police, where they do the search and surveillance techniques.
Are you bewildered at the fact they haven't found them?
Not necessarily. I think it all comes down to risk. So, what is the risk to the family with Dad? He seems to be very bush, understands the bush a lot more. He must be getting some help. That you can't hide 3 kids and yourself in the bush. So he's getting help from other people. And
the kids have got older. I mean, the kids are now 8, 9, 10. They were
and that's
6,
the
7,
problem.
8, you know?
They are missing out on a essential part of their childhood, where socialisation is a big thing. Now, when you isolate yourself from others, tacotinin's produced in your brain, and that causes anxiety, fear, and ultimately paranoia.
And the mother,
and
of course.
2.5 years is a long time. That will generate paranoia without a doubt.
Really, and he's in breach of, he doesn't have legal custody.
So police are going to have to be really careful when they do go in there, that they manage the children in particular with kid gloves, because they're going to be, well, you imagine being in an environment for 2.5 years, essentially it'll be in the same house, maybe even the same room. They've got that whole mindset would have been changed, almost leaning on brainwashing.
Yeah, I wonder how maybe he's hiding in plain sight. Because these are small towns. They're all small towns, right?
Yeah, but it's hard to, you can't hide in a small town. As somebody who used to be involved in witness protection, you hide them in the big cities where it's easier to hide.
Right, but he's not there. We
know he's not. Well,
we think he's in this area.
Yeah.
How hard is it to hide in New Zealand?
I would say very difficult. We've always found people. This has been essentially probably the longest. I can't think of any other, or certainly not in my lifetime, any that's gone on as long as it has. So,
no, if you're missing this long, you're dead, aren't you?
Well, if police, I mean, are they putting the effort in? They might have had 1 or 2 or 3 people, but it hasn't been a full homicide type person investigation.
Is that because they know this guy? Is that because they think they've profiled him and they know that, okay, well, he can survive? The kids are with him, they're with the dad. Let's not waste too much resource, which we don't have on this.
I think that's probably the case. They would have done a risk matrix on it, without a doubt, to see what is the risk of essentially putting this to one side and just working on it gradually.
But is that good enough, though? When you work on something, I mean, he may have robbed a bank, allegedly.
That's when you've got to step up the pace a bit. But you've also got to step it up. I mean, it's just not the police's fault, right? So the social welfare, there's a whole lot of other agencies that you could use. There's health. I mean, what are they doing for their health? Dentistry,
education, health, dentistry,
I mean,
hygiene.
How is that getting done? Because it has to be.
How are they eating?
Well, no one knows. They've got to be getting help.
It's a great story.
They've got to.
It's a movie.
Well, if it wasn't real, there'd be a movie in it, right? But there is some risk here. There's a real risk to those children, and that's the thing that I worry about, not the guy.
Confronted, do you think he could do something silly?
I would suggest that could be the case.
Is that what usually happens? Is that
so that's the paranoia that comes from it. Yeah. You get comfortable in the uncomfortable, and so they're there, know their world, know their environment very well, and now you've got outsiders coming and rushing in with firearms, no doubt. All that sort of thing is going to likely to cause a lot of issues. So it's really about coordinate, contain and voice appeal, and having a negotiator, crisis negotiator there.
Well, it really is sort of on tenterhooks, isn't it? It really is. Do you think the police know something now because of the 80,000? I tend to think they probably do.
Well, they set up a Ford headquarters in that area, so the information they had was credible, without a doubt. And that's why they've just thrown the resources in there now, and you've seen the drones going up, etc.
Such a small town. I mean, you're talking about 100 houses. I mean, it's a village.
It could. So if it's that small, then it's probably tight knit, and they probably understand what's happening. And yeah,
this idea that police won't charge someone if they've been harbouring them if they come forward. How likely is it that you can trust the police's word on that?
Well, I think they wouldn't say it if they didn't mean it. It depends upon the involvement. So, again, that's something to be negotiated, but they would be genuine in that. You just can't come out and say, they've got, what they've said is, we will look at the circumstances of the involvement, haven't they? And there is the possibility of immunity.
Yes. Do we think he's in a tent, in a sophisticated outdoor campsite? No.
There's
no way. Not 2.5 years.
No, not 2.5 years. And I doubt that it would be. I would not think that it would be a house of any sort, because that's easy to be seen. If it is, it's going to be under the bush. Could be likely a cave or something like that, or
like a panic room under the ground or something.
Well, who knows?
So maybe not a tent. Well, definitely not a tent. No. Not a house.
No.
And what's in between that?
Well, it could be a small cabin, but who knows? It could be in a cave. It could be, or in fact, it could be a house that's been built under dense bush.
Yeah, and I mean, being with your kids for that length of time. Sometimes you need a break from your kids, I just wonder how that sort of whole thing's going too.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. That's why there has to be some other involvement. Now, how do we know if it's just one house? How do we know that the kids are actually there and somebody else is not looking after the kids on occasion?
Is he facing serious charges once they get him?
We'd have to. I'd say so. I would suggest so. It depends on what's happened, how the children have been looked after. I mean, the whole thing is to be looked at from that perspective, because what sort of law has he broken so far?
Do you think the police have done a good job?
Well, I think they've done what they could with what they had.
What do they have? Not much?
Doesn't look like there's been a lot of resources being pushed towards this.
And why would that be? Because if the local commander or whatever wanted to call on some help, they could, obviously. Has it not been prioritised?
Well, it depends on the risk matrix. I haven't seen it. So there'll be a risk matrix there. What is the likely of that, of the father causing harm to the children? What's the likely of the children coming to harm?
Well, he's had them away. He's had them away from all the things that they were meant to be at for the last 2.5 years. Plus, there's a potential bank robbery as well. I mean, that's serious, isn't it?
That risk matrix would have to include a psychologist of some sort to be able to sit down, or a child educationalist to sit down and say, what's this caused to the children?
Would they call the army at any stage? Could they call?
I think, well, there's got to be certain circumstances to call the army into against its own, essentially. But they don't need to, because they've got the Special Tactics Group, which are trained in this type of
STG group.
They're trained in this type of function.
But they don't appear anywhere near it, do they?
Well,
but what we've seen so far,
they don't appear to be.
No,
but they'll be there somewhere now.
Yeah. Okay, what's your prediction? Do you think someone will? Do you think someone will come forward with the money? The money's enticing. Yeah?
I'm not sure that anyone will come forward, but I think it's now or never. So they'll be putting the resources in until they find them.
Good stuff, Lance. Always appreciate your time on the program. All the best.
Cheers.
Garner.